Okay, so speaking, I just got done. Gonna get a burger. Okay, so in this particular situation, um, I I always have to sort of give this credit because you know that isn't my father, but he was such a mentor to me, and I really got embraced into that family. It was everybody knows that was a dinner table where we had all walks of life, white, black, Asian, sat at that table and ate some Mexican food. Everybody got to eat at that table. And everyone's like, hey, Robert got food, they're cooking over there. So anyway, Robert Zarates like this, right? I'm sitting next to him and the lights are turned off. Now the glare of the TV is only left on. And for some reason there's no one in the living room. And I don't know exactly why, but when you're in those circumstances where you know the patient, where I'm not a professional, but you know that the magnitudes is sort of take this, carry it, like carry it because they need you to be strong. They need you that way because the mental state and weakness and delicate, and let that happen as natural as you can and not interfere whatever space that they're in, because this is the final, whether there's something there or not. Okay, and so when I look at him, and he's like this, and he's almost kind of leaning toward me, like he's almost kind of like this. He's not touching me, but he's nearly like almost leaning on me. He doesn't fall over or anything, but I kind of look at him, and so I kind of give it this sort of affirmation. Okay, and the reason I do this because I look at him, I'm looking directly into his eyes like this, like he's like this, and when I look at him, he looked very much like that's it, like and this is how it gets reconfirmed as well. So when I slowly turn, I know he's looking at my face. I know he sees me. So I had to reaffirm, like, because it's the process. There's nothing more than you can do. Because, you know, this is the way of how I approached it. And I say this because there's nothing that you can say it's just his entire look and vibe was just thinking about his son. His lonely son of the kids he had that was also named Robert is now been killed with another young man, and he was so wanting to protect his son and make a life better for him. And he used to always tell me, Hector, I think your life. He goes, your life. You don't want to mess up your life. He would always kind of give me such a mentor talk growing up all the time. Oh, and I wanted to say this. He used to always mention this to me about Ronald Reagan, and he used to sit there. And this is compassion things that he used to say, and he used to always say, "Yeah, you're that guy Ronald Reagan." He goes, "Man, he's I feel really bad for him because, poor man, poor old man. He's the president. He did all this, and he has dementia. He had Alzheimer's or dementia, and it's considered as a long goodbye. You don't remember anything anymore." And he used to say this, and these are the tokens that Mr. Zarate used to say, and he used to say this all the time when we used to drive home. He used to pick us up all the time at the movie theater and give us all these quotes or whatever, the stories. And he said that, and he would say this, but these are tokens to think because he knew my dad was in a nursing home to give compassion to my dad, which I always did, follow through. And anyway, when I saw him, it was very much like, yeah, it was death. Like, it was very close. Like, I don't know why nobody was in the room. It was just me and him. And anyway, 20 minutes go by. I think Selena comes in for a little while. We're just watching TV. And that was pretty much just it. We're just kind of, it's just the glare in all the rooms. For some reason, none of the lights were on. It's just the glare of the big screen TV, massive big screen TV. And it was, I remember just turning around and sort of reaffirming because I know he was looking at me in focus, because the attention of what that patient and what that individual is going through, make it as best as you can. Make it as best as you can and not about yourself, because it's about that person. and what they remember and where they need you to be. So just do your best to that. And I'm very articulate, sort of delicate in all the different type of church things, or energy spaces, and sort of this kindness that this man used to share with me many years ago. And I never forgot this. I get up about 25 minutes after 30 minutes, visiting him, 40 minutes. It wasn't more than 45 minutes. It wasn't more than an hour. Like 40 minutes estimated. I would have stayed there longer. It wasn't that I was bothered. And I didn't want to come over too much because I felt like sometimes I was going to bring more pain because he could just think about. And I was very young. I'm 18 years old. I'm 19. I just turned 19 years old. And the last time that I want to say this is the last time that I saw him, the glare of the TV, he was sitting on the couch and nobody was. And he said, "All right, Mr. Zarates," he goes, I'm gonna go ahead on, and I'll come by and visit you again, okay? And you take care, and I know God is watching, and everything's gonna get pull us through these circumstances. For those that remember, or for those that have a camera in there, you'll see my actions. So, as I'm walking and I leave, he tells me, and he's like this, and he goes, "Okay, bye." Like he's telling me in a way that at that time I thought he was still gonna be alive, maybe a couple of more months or a couple more visits, and that was the last time, and it was like a sort of a farewell, and of death, departing, and his efforts, don't forget about, don't forget about what I did, or, this old man, I used to get on early, go to Robert Zarates' house, and he used to have small pig in the blankets, taquitos. Hey, my dad made taquitos, has pig in the blankets, and I love pig in the blankets. Those was good. And and he would drive us to school sometimes. So anyway, I thought I would talk about that, kind of address that. I waited a couple of days because it's been on my mind a couple of days, and I don't want it to be tainted. So I think it was important for me to make discussion, and I did the best. That is the closest I have where the hospice experience. That was probably and by this time I had seen so much with my dad wasn't even dead. My father hadn't died yet, and he was still in the nursing home. I could never put that magnitude in discussion what that really was like. What that was really like to be during that type of turmoil. I just thought I was going to be living underneath the bridge at this point. Lucky if I was going to get a place to live with my mom's. Her boy was going to take all this money. All the suffering I had gone through, the experience is just total trash, and I'm worthless. I'm just fucking worthless to this fucking trash can. It's just like that, just like that. And I make the genuine effort. The genuine, you'd have to understand, there's no one in my life at this point that can really help. Man, especially when you're young, you're that emotional. You're very emotional. You don't have the experience to rely on except for the experiences at the nursing home. So I get there, and I left, and I wasn't crying. It was just emotional. I wasn't crying, but it was to have that amount of shit that was going on, and then it was a lot. I was a lot of shit. I was because nobody comforted me ever. It was just very much. So his father passed away, and I found out. I called a few days. I think it was a few days because no one called me, and maybe it could have been Rodrigo. I think Rodrigo was a couple days after he passed away, or I called randomly to see how he was doing to come visit him again. And I was told he died. Rodrigo performed CPR. He was sitting on the couch right where I was sitting next to him, and he started dying. and he said that he performed CPR and he tried to bring him back to life. And he told me, I mean, it was as genuine as he said, Hector, I'm telling you, I looked into his eyes, and he let go. He did not want to be alive anymore. His son died. He was like, it's not wasn't like a suicide mission. He let go. He didn't. He was done. It was too much for him to bear anymore. To be living any longer. He said he was looking directly in his eyes. He said, and he was performing CPR on him, and he died. He very much died, like leaving. He said he didn't want to be here anymore. There was no more reason for him. Felt like he had any purpose anymore in life, and he died. I get called, said in a couple of days or the next day his funeral service. I don't even have prepare. And let me tell you this, I know it's going to not be the best of circumstances to understand, but this is not in any way for me to say, because I didn't go to the funeral. It was, to me, it was not in any way, and I felt bad for disrespect. It wasn't disrespect to Rodrigo or anybody. I'm sure they felt sort of like Hector should have been here, maybe. And for me, I remember just spiritually and like praying, like I did prayer, and just soaking in like the funeral service and envisioning. I was, very much felt like I was experiencing it, and I know it sounds really cheesy or whatever, but I didn't go because I was overwhelmed, and I knew he just wasn't there anymore, and I felt like it kind of gave maybe something, but I don't know how many other people showed up for Robert Sr. I don't know what the circumstances was. But for me, I didn't show up, and I regretted it. I felt like, because I got bogged down pretty bad. I got bogged down, like, I was like, I didn't know what was going to happen with my life. I'm 18 years old. You got to remember, your experience levels are very minimized at 18 than they are when they're 25 and 35. You're 18. I'm 18 years old, 19 years old. So, I visit Rodrigo and Alicia at their apartment. And I saw Alicia crying and she was pregnant. It was gloomy in the kitchen. And I did the best that I could, and she had been crying like she couldn't believe that, her son and dad died. And, me and Rodrigo had a moment of tears. He was sitting in the rocking chair of, Robert. They named their baby boy. They were naming him Robert. And to talk about, a few things, and we had a talk, for about an hour. Talked about, Billy's eventual murder, and, and there was just a lot of shit, because I knew Rodrigo was going through a lot of shit. Because he was trying to figure out something that was going on. And this is one of the reasons, because there was never a discussion anything about the Kardashians. There was never a discussion. And he was trying to figure out what the fuck, because there were so many friends, so many people, and it seemed like everyone kind of scattered everywhere once the death happened, and they just scattered everywhere. And I felt very bad for not going to the apartment. I thought about him, and I went there a couple of times. I think I'm going to say twice. I went there to my apartment, and it was to kind of allow them to develop, because I didn't want to make them feel like I was there mooching. And now they're living in an apartment, small 2-bedroom apartment, and they're not living in a house anymore, and Alicia's pregnant. Showed a couple of times, and I sort of let them kind of live about their life. I was just now trying to get settled. I was living in my apartment. It was like a couple months, me living into my apartment, or same month. I was trying to rebuild because I had no family at that time. It was over for me. So I was in the same position they were, except I didn't have anybody at this point. It was just me in the streets, and at this time Robert Palomo had already given me, which is a half brother or stepbrother. They were going to help me. I was just me in the streets. That's it. I was in the same situation as them, but if not worse. So that's the story of Robert Monsignor Zarate, uh, where he had told me, and he did say, like, it was his goodbye, and it was I didn't cry. Uh, I just felt like he he couldn't live on. He wasn't gonna want to live on anymore. His son had died, and he was dying already. He was, and you know, it was kind of like a byword that he said. That, I mean, I'd known him, and on his dinner table so many times. He was always on my mind throughout my entire life. There are always times that I'd be thinking about Mr. Zarate. He's, picking us up to the movie theater. We jump in the back truck. We went to Six Flags, and something would go out in his car, and he'd always kind of a sort of handy dandy kind of guy, and he'd have like a little fuse, and he'd put it in his glove compartment. The dashboard goes out. He said, "Hold on, let me pull out for a second. Just give me that fuse. Give me the F-14 or whatever." Robert would be kind of giggling and laughing. He goes, oh, "Look at my dad," I was like, and he gives him a chip, unplugs it underneath the car, plugs it up, and turns it back on. There we go. Okay, come on, we go on our way, and that was it. I mean, so anyway, throughout my life, and I felt very, very, very fortunate to be a part of that. To be a part of watching someone allow me to be a part of his life, because Robert Senior Zarate wanted to talk to me, because, like, alone. I don't know if Daniel Box ever showed up, and he was worried about me. He was worried and didn't want me living on the streets. He didn't want me. He was worried that my life could end up, like a suffering life out in the streets, sleeping under bridges, all kinds of different horrible things. And, it's just like, it's bad out there. And, but that is the story. And throughout my life, and I was very, very lucky to have been allowed, Alicia, especially Alicia, who that was her father. I used to be there when I heard, her dad would get into arguments, or he would tell her for her sneak her out. So I know the whole stories of Alicia all the time. Before she moved in, when Robert was excited, we were kids, his dad used to bring burgers, from the hood. All kinds of endless stories, playing pillow fights and shit. Robert picked her up a few times. He used to take her over to TJ Maxx when Lisa used to work there for a couple months. All kinds of stuff. So what happens is, that was the story. And it was, I thought I was going to see him again, and I didn't. But it very felt like when I heard him as I was walking, and he looked at me, like, as I told him, and, I was very affirmed to start addressing the situation, by behavior about what was happening in that experience. This is about as serious as you can get to somebody that's very close to me, and I'm looking right at him, and death was, I didn't even know that he had cancer, but I knew by looking at him there wasn't much time left at all. He could not pick up really his own weight anymore, and breathing very heavily, very weak, not heavily, but like he was having a lot of trouble to pick up his own weight anymore, and in the smallest of ways. And as I was, walking, he looked at me and he goes, and I remember, and he goes, okay, all right. And I want to say he said it again, or as when I stood up, then I walked, and I then heard him say, okay, bye. And that was it. So I wanted to address that. I was very fortunate to allow. I saw Selena, Alicia, they had their tears had sort of been paired and dried up a little bit, because we were like the second class of people that walk in there and witness Mr. Zarate. But we were crying. We were, all three of us, those three friends, we were crying like babies. And it was hard on all of us. Very, very hard. Chris Dotson drove by himself. me and Daniel went in his Suburban, and you know, it was tough, because like there was a moment where we're inside the hospital, Parkland Hospital, and he was laying there, and it was like the final moments of death for real, and uh, and he was just so weak, and he was just sitting on his sort of sitting up a little bit, and he was like, and it was like he was now just saying his sort of final words and what he had to say, and I remember Alicia, Mary Zarates, also we're all standing up and we're all sitting around sort of surrounding his bed with me, Chris Dotson. I was on one side of the right side of the bed. Chris Dotson and Dana were one side, but we're toward his feet area. Alicia, Selena, and Mary were right up front to him. And he wanted to talk to us. And you could just, it was pure, like, his last words of what he wanted to share. You know, and, you know, ultimately, you know, Robert Girardi forgave his dad, and I talked to Rodrigo as well about it, that his dad had forgiven the people that had killed him in the car wreck, his son and Edward. And his dad was the one that could have pressed charges, and he didn't. And he says that it's hard enough to being able to take those two individuals' lives, because they're going to have to carry that for the rest of their life. But he could have pressed charges, I remember at the time, and he didn't. And he had forgiven them, and it's not going to bring my kid back. It's not going to bring my son anymore. And because they assumed that they were possibly drinking and driving or whatever it was. But he had forgiven them. Dr. Rodrigo, and he could have pressed charges, and he didn't. And Rodrigo's the one that told me that, and we had a discussion about it. It was a very solemn discussion. So I thought it would be important for me to discuss this. He did forgive all three of them. There was, to my understanding, it was 3 people, 2 girls, a guy, and there was a guy driving. There's a lot of suspicion and guessing to this and that. I never met the people, never saw them. I don't know who exactly it was. I just knew it was 2 girls and a guy. And the guy was driving. But anyway, I thought I would talk about that. He's a very big church man, so I thought I'd tell you that was tough. You know, when you experience those types of things, and at that time I was very sort of, sort of felt maybe more of a detachment emotionally toward God. That was pretty intense. You know, you do start to feel the sense of the human people around you don't give a fuck about life, don't care. And you realize that your life will be nothing more than that. And nobody's really caring for each other. And you almost feel like you got to start being cold because they don't care. And when you're gone forever. That's it. And the people that have ever known you, they'll be gone forever. And they may not ever see you permanently forever again. We don't know. We don't make that final judgment for whatever it is. But what we do know is this life. And for me, seeing that, for me, it was just, I was still waiting for my father to die. And there wasn't, I know that waiting, but it wasn't just like that. But, it was very surreal. It was when we were in there, it was like his last moments of life. It was. And anyway, I thought I would make a video about that. And I don't know what the inner circle arguments were between Selena, Mary Zarates, and Alicia. I don't know what that was, but I was very, very blessed. And I know Mr. Zarates had requested to speak to me and requested to speak to, Daniel Box and Chris, all of us together. And he said, complete my GED. Something he said several times to me. And I'm just saying what he said, so I'm not trying to make this even more than it is. But yeah, I'm gonna eat my burger. My mother brought me some Brahms burger. They make really good burgers and some fries. He's definitely a classic joint here. And got my Brahms drink and told my mother I love her and try not to worry too much. And sometimes we don't say the things we really want, really didn't mean to say in life to the most dearest to people of us, including I'm very guilty of toward my mother. But yeah, it's not, I was seeing a lot of that death, but not like that. Not particularly that close, and especially someone that close to me and saying goodbye and it happening. Because the thing is that when he did that, for those that don't know, before Robert Zarates was killed in a car wreck, he called me that same night, and I was supposed to go with him, and he called me at the last minute, and he told me, "Don't worry about it. Don't worry. We'll go to the club next weekend or something, or in the next couple of days." He called me returned my call and said, "Don't worry about it, man." He goes, "Don't worry about it." And he goes, we'll go to the club sometime next week or something like that, man. Don't worry about it. We'll go to the club some other time. And that was a very wild ride. Farewell, goodbye as well to me. And I can never repay them for what they did to me. That bothered me. Felt a lot of guilt. I felt a lot of guilt. I always thought about that because I could never repay them. Never repay them. I couldn't know who to repay. I mean, I couldn't. Other than the graciousness of God. I could never repay them. I was really bothered by that, because it was like somebody giving me something free and I couldn't do anything to return, and they're no longer alive anymore. So, anyway, I know it sounds really hard and bad to say maybe it's a gift, but you gotta understand, if somebody allows you to be that part of the circle and actually watch those moments of life with their dad or mother or brother, you're lucky to be into that circle. And I was, it was all of us. We were crying like babies. So, but I thought I'd make a video. God bless. Prayers. Believe in God. Meditate. And those were my experiences with respect to the Zarates family and Alicia.